Hello, hello. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll get started here shortly as people continue to join into the session. I guess we'll go ahead and give it a start time at 12:01, just to allow enough time for folks to get here. As always for the day, please feel free to use chat to communicate with us. Also, if you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A feature. With that, we hope this is a wonderful learning experience for you today. Learning about guest houses, in-law suites, or sometimes called accessory dwelling units. Perfect. All right. Well, I think we have good amount of folks here today. So I'm going to get started. Hello and welcome to Guest Houses and In-Law Suites. Expand your housing options with ADUs. My name is Antoine Watson, and I am the age-friendly director here with AARP Massachusetts. I look forward to facilitating today's conversation about accessory dwelling units and how they offer many possibilities to people of all ages and make our communities more livable. So, what does it mean to expand your housing options? It means thinking about your home in a new way and looking at its possibilities for housing beyond just one family. Take a moment to visualize your own home and think about its possibilities. As you age, is there space for you to easily downsize to separate more accessible space on your property? Do you have older relatives who might need more family support as they age? And do you have space for them in your home? If you don't have a clear picture in your mind, don't worry. In this session, we want to paint you a clear picture of what flexible housing can look like. You might already be familiar with the terms in-law suites, guest house, carriage house, guest cottage, or in-home apartment. These are all common names used for accessory dwelling units or ADUs. Maybe you've been hearing more about these housing options recently. For instance, during the coronavirus pandemic, many people looked for creative and flexible housing options to allow loved ones to live closer without necessarily sharing the same four walls. ADUs have many benefits for homeowners and their communities. We'll look at different types of ADUs and discuss important considerations if you're interested in building one. We'll also talk about how you can support their development in your community and provide resources to help you get started. As I mentioned before, throughout the presentation, this is a good reminder that if you want to chat, you have a nice comment, please add it in the chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to put that in the Q&A section so that we can keep track of your questions and make sure they're getting answered. Again, we're going to go through with continuing this project. You see the agenda there, and with that, we'll keep it going. An accessory dwelling unit is a small residence that shares a single family lot with a larger primary dwelling. It is an independent living space. It's self-contained with its own kitchen or kitchenette, bathroom, and living and sleeping areas. In the illustration, there are highlighted examples of ADUs as an attached structure on the left and a standalone units on the right. ADUs can be found in cities, in suburbs, in rural areas, yet are often not noticed because they're positioned behind or indistinct from the main house, as you can also see in the illustration. Because ADUs are built on single-family lots as a secondary dwelling, they typically cannot be partitioned off to be sold separately. You might have heard of tiny houses. They're kind of trendy right now. ADUs are not necessarily tiny houses, but they are similar. ADUs are compact, but not teeny. So there are a more practical option for individuals, couples, and families seeking small, affordable housing. They're also known as in-law suites, guest houses, carriage houses, guest cottages, or in-home apartments, and the list goes on. Until the 20th century, ADUs were commonplace. At that time, there were few or no zoning rules. There were also few municipal services or infrastructure like utilities, roads, schools, trash collection, or first responders to consider. Modern zoning laws take all of these into consideration. ADUs began making a comeback in the 1980s as cities explored ways to support smaller and more affordable housing options with a single dwelling neighborhoods. In these photos, we see some examples of ADUs: an apartment above a garage, an ADU attached to an existing house, and two types of converted garages. These photos all show very different kinds of housing options, but they can all be considered ADUs. Do any of these ADUs fit in the character of your neighborhood? If so, please add it in the chat. So now we're going to watch a short video about ADUs.
ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, which is a second dwelling, meaning a second home on the same parcel as another home, but it's much smaller.
So it's not just smaller space, it's smaller bills, it's smaller utilities. It's less rent if you have to pay rent. It's certainly less cost to build when you have a smaller square footage. So that's really critical when you're looking at affordability and the housing crisis that many cities are facing these days.
We're building an accessory dwelling unit in our backyard right now out of 2 shipping containers. So we're really excited to just sort of have this opportunity to have a small dwelling in our backyard that will allow us to age in place eventually. We can, as we grow out of our house, move in there. But our plan initially is to actually move in and rent out our main dwelling to sort of offset costs and to have some supplemental income as well. Our accessory dwelling unit is going to have 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen and full bathroom, and a common space that will incorporate a living room and dining area as well.
So building a house out of shipping containers, that's an interesting ADU, but there are many other kinds of ADUs. So let's have an interactive question to get you thinking about the possibilities of ADUs. Which of these is not an ADU? Hopefully you all got a pop-up on your screen just now with that question and answer. So A, a small studio apartment above a garage with its own kitchenette and bathroom. B, a converted attic apartment with its own entrance, kitchen, and bathroom. Or C, a converted guest house used as a home office without a kitchen or a bathroom. All right, we'll give it a couple more seconds. And perfect. So the answer to that is C. It's technically not an ADU. If the owner adds a kitchen and a bathroom, we'd consider it an ADU. So let's look at some data about housing needs and wants in America today and how ADUs can help meet some of those needs and wants. The AARP Community Survey in 2021 shows us that adults prefer to live in their own neighborhoods as they age. You can see some of the survey results here. 79% of the respondents said they want to remain in their community for as long as possible, and 77% said they want to remain in their current residence as long as possible. Communities become a source of support and engagement for residents, particularly for older adults who have an even stronger desire to age in place. The AARP survey finds many adults age 50 and older are willing to consider alternatives such as home sharing and building an accessory dwelling unit. Other surveys show that a majority of Americans of all ages prefer to live in walkable neighborhoods that offer a mix of housing and transportation options and are close to jobs, schools, shopping, entertainment, and parks. ADUs can play a major role in serving these needs and wants by allowing for a greater number of smaller homes in more compact neighborhoods, Family-friendly, multi-generational housing options are important and sometimes overlooked components of making our communities more livable, and ADUs can help with these kinds of needs and wants. So let's watch another video about how ADUs can offer housing options to older adults and multi-generational families.
I've been here for almost 19 years now. It's the longest place I've ever lived as an adult now. So it's home. And that's the great thing about this neighborhood. I can walk 2 blocks down to International Boulevard, and a 12-minute walk I can get to BART, which is our heavy rail system here. So it's nice that I can access a lot of things without actually being in a car, which is what I really wanted in a neighborhood. One of the things I think will really benefit of having an ADU, from our perspective, it allows us to be able to have, our elder of our family, Iris, be able to stay with us and, reduce her costs. But even if she doesn't stay there, it allows us to then provide opportunity for, a younger person that wants to move into the community. That helps us to be able to have an additional income, allows us to stay here longer.
My mother's very social, she's very active, older but not old, young at heart for sure. So having a space where she can still live her life is important.
The more close-knit you have your family, it's usually the better off you are. You have those conversations that can't occur over the phone, that occur when you have it right here close together. But it's also just a sense of comfort knowing that they're close and that if they need something, if we need something from Iris or Iris needs something from us, we're right here for each other.
The option of having her close to us without necessarily being in our space is a wonderful solution for everybody.
But it also could be a play that, that allows us, as we age, and I do have some health issues that vary up and down, so my work schedule can change, how much time I can work, that provides us, additional income. So I have that flexibility of physical, but really of mental, being able to know that we're going to bring income in and be able to stay where we really like to be.
So this was a great example of how an ADU can provide support and independence for an older family member. But there are many other reasons why people are interested in building ADUs.
I've been here.
Let's do another interactive question to get you thinking about some benefits of ADUs. Hopefully you all remember how this works. So can you guess the top reason why homeowners said they'd consider building an ADU? A, provide a home for a loved one in need of care. Provide housing for relatives or friends. C, feel safer by having someone living nearby. D, have a space for guests. E, increase the value of their home. F, create a place for a caregiver to stay. Or G, earn extra income from renting to a tenant. Wonderful. We see some good answers coming in. Nice spread. We'll give it a couple more seconds. All right. Perfect. So if you answered A, provide a home for a loved one in need of care, you're correct. So the responses are ranked in order. 84% of people have ranked provide a home for a loved one. At 83%, providing housing for relatives or friends. Have a space for guests, 69%. Increasing the value of their home, 67%. Feel safer by having someone living nearby, 64%. Create a space for a caregiver to stay, 60%, and only 53% to earn extra income for renting to a tenant.
Here in Ashland, Oregon.
So let's take a look at how one homeowner decided to convert her garage to usable living space and how she hopes her family will benefit from it.
Here in Ashland, Oregon, there are a lot of these ADUs that happen. The rental scene has kind of, like it has for the rest of the country, been pushed to a difficulty because, people need space. We've got a university here, we've got a big theater here, we've got more people that want to move here. And I think it's part of the living culture is what separate space do you have? How do you use it? It offers people a way to add to what they already have. And I think that just gives you more opportunity, more reason to stay here because you've got some possibilities. And I think also as you get older, things change. So we just moved out of the garage like moments ago, actually. They just last week started to do some of the demolition work. And everybody's got a different story. Our hope is that maybe at least for the first year, we can just have friends and family in and out of there, and then maybe rent it out. But our one and only kid is away at college and she's a freshman.
You'll be able to see it all. Yeah, do you want to see it? Okay, and this is Tom. He's taking stuff away too. All right, girl. Here we go.
Have no idea what's going to happen in the world, and have no idea, if my kid is going to need a space to come back to. And we have a small house, and we have one bathroom, and we've been able to live with that. But to give her a second space, possibly to land, in between things, or, just if she needs help. I think it also keeps us in the world a little bit because, I've thought, well, maybe there's a foreign exchange student, that might want to live there. Or maybe there's, I just feel like the possibilities have grown about what that space could be for us and for other people.
It's great that she saw so many possible uses for her ADU. Let's consider how people of all ages and life stages can make use of more flexible housing options, such as ADUs. If you are interested in age-friendly housing or aging in place, you could construct an ADU with universal design features, such as zero-step entry, wide doors, accessible kitchens, and bathrooms. Individuals in need of care can reside in an ADU to be near family members, or they can use the ADU to house a live-in aide. In some cases, ADUs can be an affordable and more comfortable alternative to an assisted living facility or a nursing home. Empty nesters can build an ADU and move into it, then rent out the main house for supplemental income or make it available to their adult children. Home buyers can look forward, home-based workers can use an ADU as their office or workshop. Any homeowner can use an ADU for guests or as a housing for friends or loved ones. So let's listen to another couple's consideration about creating a space to help them stay in their community as they age.
Several features that are very unique to this space for us. One, very practically, it's the first time I've had all my tools for my artistic work in one spot, which
Not
makes
in my
it,
garage.
Yes, right. But also on another level, well, we both had been badgering our wonderful contractors to make sure that the doors were the right width. We have several friends who are in wheelchairs. We've never been able to invite them to our home because we have a lot of steps. And so one of the things that I wanted to make absolutely certain that this space accommodated accessibility, both for our friends and also potentially for us if one or the other of us needs a more accessible space. So we had a Thanksgiving dinner here just recently, and that was when we had our first guest in a wheelchair.
We just settled right down to dinner with the rest of us.
Yeah.
It was great.
So for us, if we live here as we age, it makes it very convenient.
It's also just a quieter space that we wanted to actually relieve ourselves of all of that digital world a little bit. It's walkable from here down the alleyway 2 blocks away to get to the center of town, to the community-owned grocery store, coffee shops.
Shops and restaurants.
I could take the bike path down to the YMCA and swim or work out or whatever and back. the whole area is conducive to being able to interact with others, but also just to get to stuff in town. And I think as we age and decide we don't want to deal with the steps in our house and things like that, this will be a great place to phase into how we want to live our lives at that point.
One thing I really like about that video is how they considered the accessibility needs of their friends and their possible future accessibility needs too.
Several.
Now, let's take a closer look at some detailed plans by looking at images from an AARP publication, Accessory Dwelling Units, a step-by-step guide to design and development. We've got floor plans for 2 ADU designs at different sizes, 300 square feet and 800 square feet. On the left, you can see how ADUs work in relation to the existing house. You notice the design trade-offs, like less space in the backyard versus more living space. So in chat, let us know, could you live in a 300 square foot tiny house? Or would you rather live in an apartment sized 800 square foot ADU? We'll give that a second. Perfect. Yeah, 300 square feet is definitely a bit of a stretch. All right. So let's take a look at different ADU designs.
Accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, can play an important role in serving Massachusetts housing needs. These small auxiliary units were once commonplace in communities across the U.S. as carriage houses, guest cottages, and in-law suites. But they're largely prohibited in much of the country under today's building codes. ADUs can take many forms. They can be attached to an existing home or be a standalone structure. Let's explore some ways homeowners can build ADUs and how they can help older adults remain in their communities. An existing garage offers several possibilities. For example, one owner could convert their garage into a fully accessible apartment for themselves as their mobility changes, and have family members live in their original house. Or another owner could keep the garage and build an in-law suite over it as a home for a caregiver or family member. A basement could also become an in-law suite. So could an attic. A homeowner could also build a small standalone cottage on their lot for guests or for a family caregiver if they ever need one, and later could become their primary home when they want to downsize or live in a more accessible home. Different communities in Massachusetts are experimenting with changes that allow for new ADUs. Some are considering allowing any kind of ADU to be built, while others are considering prohibiting certain kinds of ADUs. Regardless of how and why they're built, ADUs can help ensure that people of all ages, including older adults, have more possibilities in where and how to live in their own communities.
So as you can see, that was a great example of very different kinds of ADU designs. So remember the beginning of the session when I asked you about your own home and how it could be more flexible? Let's try that again, now that you have more information about ADUs. So we're gonna have another poll pop up. So which ADU meets your future needs best? A fully accessible detached ADU, attic apartment, basement apartment, converted garage, or apartment above a garage? So some things to consider while you're answering these, take a minute to really think about your future housing needs. For example, does your current home have lots of steps and you're worried about future mobility issues? Maybe a fully accessible detached ADU could meet those future needs best. Or if you like the idea of making room for younger members of a multi-generational family, maybe an attic or a basement apartment would work best for you. Perfect. So we got the results in, and about 64% of you said a fully accessible detached ADU is ideal. But the others also show up as well, being in the attic at 6%, and basement apartments, as well as converted garages or an apartment above the garage. So there is no one way for ADUs to fit. As you can see, there's a variety, and it also depends on the community you're in. And what space is available to have this happen near you. So if you're interested in how ADUs can help make your community more livable, here are some things to consider. ARP supported the statewide Housing Choice Bill and advocated to get it passed into law. The law allows for local zoning changes to create ADUs. Housing choice lowers the required vote from a 2/3 majority to a simple majority for adopting or amending any of the following zoning ordinances or bylaws, including by right accessory dwelling units, whether within a home or in a detached structure on the same lot. If ADUs are not allowed in your community and you want them to be ask an elected official or the local Department of Zoning and Planning for information about how the codes can be updated. Then get organized and start advocating. ADUs can fit in every community, but zoning laws need to change. Changing zoning laws isn't a simple process, but it's not impossible. Each city and town in the Commonwealth must take an affirmative action, a vote with a simple majority to allow ADUs by right in that community. A good first step is to talk to your neighbors about how allowing zoning for ADUs would help your community. As you've seen, ADUs can offer older adults and owners of all ages some real benefits. Older adults can become champions for ADUs. You can start to participate in local planning efforts about local zoning laws and regulations. The ADU section of a community zoning code needn't be overly complicated. It just needs to establish clear, objective, and fair rules. It should provide clear answers to questions like, who's eligible to build an ADU? How can ADUs be built? For example, can they be new construction, existing structures, or both? Should there be any restrictions on the number of ADUs allowed in a given area, such as a lot block, street, or neighborhood? What are the parking rules? What use and safety standards need to be followed? What are the design standards? What rules are needed to ensure that ADUs fit into the character of the neighborhood? If you're interested in building your own ADU, here are some things to consider. There are two kinds of barriers individuals might face when building an ADU: the building process and financing. There is a hurdle to overcome to find an architect and contractor, but these professionals can help you through the process of permitting and building. It's really worth the effort to research these kinds of professionals. Reach out to local architect associations or talk to the neighbors and friends about builders that they trust. In terms of financing, speak to a trusted mortgage lender about financing options available to you. A few communities have financial incentives for building ADUs, so it might be worthwhile to check with these kinds of programs in your community. Some options for financing an ADU include taking out a first mortgage, a home equity line of credit loan, renovation loans such as Department of Housing and Urban Development, 203K loans. So there's a variety of ways, but most importantly, it's important to do your research. So we do have another poll for you. How many people have worked with an architect or builder before? Yes, I've worked with an architect or builder before and feel very knowledgeable about the process. Yes, I've worked with an architect or builder before, but still don't feel very knowledgeable about the process. Nope, I haven't worked with an architect or a builder before. We'll give that a couple of seconds here. Perfect. Great, great, great. So it looks like a lot of you maybe haven't worked with an architect or builder before. So that's good to know. I mean, just as with any home repair project, it's important to really do your research, make sure you're getting multiple bids, and really finding the resources that are going to be best helpful to identifying qualified architects and builders before moving forward with any project. So that's good to know. Thank you. So I'd like to share some stories about ADUs from across Massachusetts. ARP resources were helpful in supporting ADU development in a number of communities. In Salem, the city council adopted an affordable ADU ordinance based on best practices and specific input from community, and they offer a grant to help fund construction. In Arlington, a group of local citizens led the charge with educating town meeting members, which led to the approval of an amendment to the zoning bylaws. There are also several other cities and towns currently in the process of reviewing their current ADU bylaws, including Framingham and Westford. And they are, in fact, using a number of materials, which are on the next slide. So ARP has several publications that you can use to get to know ADUs better. The ABCs of ADUs is a 20-page introductory and best practice guide for how towns, cities, counties, and states can include ADUs in their mix of housing options. Accessory Dwelling Units, a step-by-step guide to design and development, is a design catalog that contains information about financing and budgeting for an ADU project, as well as visuals that show how ADUs can be easily designed to serve people of differing ages and abilities. The AARP website is a great way to keep informed about housing issues, including ADUs. You can visit aarp.org/ADU is a dedicated to ADUs and includes the links to the ABCs of ADUs and accessory dwelling units, a step-by-step guide to design and development. aarp.org/livable is where you can learn what a livable community is and how and why AARP is working with local leaders nationwide to make communities more livable for people of all ages. And we will include a link to these publications in the follow-up email to this event. So now we're going to pause for any questions that may have come in. And there's a couple questions that came in. One, does electricity have to be connected to this, or do they have to have separate electric connections? I would say that's actually a question for your town planners. I believe the ordinances in the local community really identify a lot of those questions related to utilities on should there be a separate meter for the accessory dwelling unit, or can it be tied into the main electricity panel? That's a really good question. The next question, the ADU using the shipping containers, will they be making that outside of it better looking? I would think neighbors would protest if not. That's a really good question. I honestly don't know. I think that was in another state, if I'm not mistaken, maybe California. But those are quite good questions to ask. And I think a lot of the pushback and concern people have around accessory dwelling units in their community is there some sort of uniformity Where does the artistic expression come in when we're looking at our properties and the structures that we're putting in place? That was a really good question. Another question that came in is, do you have any info on using the ADU for Section 8 housing? Unfortunately, I have not seen any information on using accessory dwelling units for Section 8 housing, but that's a really good question. And I think, again, it goes back to the larger law as well as local ordinances on how the accessory dwelling unit can be used in communities. For example, some communities have designated that these properties cannot be used for short-term rentals, such as Airbnbs and other short-term rental situations, but more for long-term. But a really good question, and I think again it goes back to really connecting with the town, your city or town, to really get a better understanding of the ordinances attached to accessory dwelling units. Excellent question, though. Another question: can you build an ADU and start it as an Airbnb, then later use it as a traditional ADU? Again, very good question, but I think it goes back to the town and the how if ADUs are allowed, how and what restrictions are attached to them. But excellent question. Another good question that came in: do we have a list of current Massachusetts communities that change zoning to support ADUs now, and which are working on changing zoning laws? That's an excellent question. I don't think we have an official list available, but that is something that we here at the ARP Massachusetts office are really looking to really pull together so we have a better understanding. But as I mentioned earlier, if you are curious about your community, it'd be great to talk to your city planner or city or town planner to determine where your community currently stands with accessory dwelling units. Awesome. Some really good questions came in. And some really good chat going on as well. With that, I don't see any other questions, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. I'll leave one more second at the end. So I really hope you enjoyed the presentation today. We covered a lot of information here. So let me review some key points. What accessory dwelling units are: small residences that share a single family lot with a larger primary dwelling or are confined within the main structure. ADU units offer you and your community the benefit of flexible housing options. Different types of ADUs: detached, attached, basement, attic, etc. Importance and considerations if you're interested in building an ADU: how you can support their development in your community, some AARP resources to help you get started. And to continue your learning on this topic, make sure you check out aarp.org/ADU to order or download the two publications, The ABCs of ADUs and Accessory Dwelling Units, a step-by-step guide to design and development. And we hope you stay connected with AARP. Here are some other learning opportunities you may be interested in. Learn about events, webinars, and more important issues such as Medicare, Social Security, family caregiving, fraud prevention, work, jobs, and more. Visit learn.aarp.org. AARP also provides lots of opportunities to connect with your community and one another without leaving home. To try virtual offerings like movie watch parties, coffee chats, and exercise classes, visit aarp.org/nearyou. To stay up to date on what is happening right here in Massachusetts, you can visit aarp.org/MA. Now, before you go, I'd like to let you know about some other great events and opportunities we have coming up. So we have tomorrow, tomorrow evening, the essentials of caregiving. We have downsizing and decluttering, a universal designs features for your lifelong home on November 9th, and making sense of caregiving costs on November 15th. To find all of these events, the link is on the screen, but you can visit www.aarp.org/2022 caregiving. Additionally to those events, we have another wonderful series coming up on healthy living. We have preventative dental care and coverage options on November 17th, mindfulness moments, a gift to yourself for the holiday season. Those are going to be on the Fridays throughout December. And the last one will be a mental health matters, geriatric psychiatry on December 8th. And then to learn about those healthy living events, you can visit www.aarp.org/2022 health. Now, lastly, before we close, I hope you enjoyed today's event and workshop, and hope that the information discussed and resources will be of value to you. We welcome your feedback on our session, and it's really important that you do give us that feedback so that we can continue to make these programs better moving forward. Please keep an eye out for a survey from ARP, which will be emailed to you in the next day or so. Your comments will help us improve our work in this area. And most importantly, if you want to keep in touch with us, our email is ma@aarp.org. If you'd like to call us by phone, 886-448-3621. And as I mentioned before, our website is aarp.org/ma. If you're on social media, we obviously have a Facebook and a Twitter page, so please feel free to follow us there. With that, I don't see any additional questions, but I saw some great information in chat that we'll try to follow up with on. But I want to thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at a future event. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.